Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. Okay, so today I've been reading for about an hour a book called Reframing by Dr. Bandler, and I believe it's Dr. Grinder too. Yeah, Dr. Bandler and Dr. Grinder. It's called Reframing Neuro-Linguistic Programming and the Transformation of Meaning. So the chapter I'm on right now really is focusing on parts. In fact, pretty much most of the book is about parts. It's about reframing parts. Now, parts are, let me do it real briefly. When you were at one point in time, whether it was in the spirit world or when you're in the womb, or probably not when you're first born, because the birth itself is pretty traumatic. And whenever you go through any traumatic, scary, negative experience, when you're young especially, you will kick out a part. In other words, think of yourself as one whole complete unit. So at one point in time, whatever that was, whether it was you're in the spirit world with God in heaven, possibly when you first came to the womb, you were one whole complete being. In other words, there wasn't two parts of you. There wasn't three parts. There wasn't the core you and then a part of you. You were at one, which means to be a tone. A tone means to be at one. Now, whenever you break off a part, you usually do it because you're at a very young age, the core you, and something really scary happened. For a lot of people, in fact, most people, their first day at kindergarten being left there without a parent. Like your parent, you're excited, your parents are telling you this is going to be your first day of school, because preschool, most of the parents usually would stay there at least for a half an hour to an hour and then kind of sneak out. You didn't know, but they'd be back and pick you up before you knew. But kindergarten was it's like, okay, so preschool essentially, I remember when I did it, my parent was there or a babysitter was there every day for the first few days, maybe even a week, maybe 2 weeks. And by the time I got comfortable, I remember when she said, hey, I've got to go now. I'll be back later. I was like, yeah, okay. Because I was fun playing with the toys and with the kids and stuff. And at that point I was comfortable. Now, kindergarten's a little bit different, and why they quite do it this harshly, I'm not really quite sure. But essentially, you get all excited to go to kindergarten. Some of your friends from the block are going to be there. Some other friends kids you didn't know will be there. You're going to make new friends, and you're kind of really looking forward to it. But the thing is, you don't really understand. Like, you're just going to get dropped off, and your parents are going to leave. And so, sure, the beginning of it, you're there 15 minutes early. In fact, I think the teachers probably tell the parents, hey, show up about 30 minutes early and we can all hang out and let the kids get to know each other a little bit before they go in the classroom. Well, at one point, you realize, it's the bell rings and it's time to go in the classroom, and your parents have to leave, and you're like, no! It's like a new teacher, it's a new classroom, got new kids. So I'm not going to go into this too much because I've talked about parts before, but what happens is you get so scared, the core you says, screw this, and it takes a drop of your energy. Let's say it's a drop of water, and it's going to put it out there. So remember, at one point you were like a whole complete unit, meaning a bottle of water or a glass of water, okay? It was complete, and that was you. It was one. There wasn't one plus one. It was just one. Now, this kindergarten scenario, most people absolutely make a part. In fact, I would say 99.99% of every kid that went through that scenario had made up a separate part. So the core, you get so scared, it's like, I can't deal with this. So it takes a drop of its own energy, a drop of your energy, and it pushes it outside of the core you, out of the bubble. And it's like, you deal with it. And lo and behold, this part of you freaks out. It's scared. It's probably crying. And now it becomes its own being, and it's not really its own being, but what happens, because it was separated from the whole, it becomes its own little droplet. It literally, it begins to develop its own rules, values, and beliefs, and even strategies. In fact, usually it has one strategy. And for this part, its strategy is how I deal with brand new situations. And its strategy is probably yelling, kicking, screaming, crying, and trying to pull away from the teacher's grasp to get back to the parents that are walking away. So its strategy essentially is freaking out and panicking, which is probably not a very, very good strategy. But that's the strategy you have, and that part is literally designated as anytime I get a new job, get a new school, a new class, a new friend, meeting a new group of people, that's the part that gets pushed back out to deal with it. And that's why every time you get into a new situation, you might kind of freak out inside, but as you became an adult, like, usually in 8th or 9th grade, especially for young boys, like, well, I mean, I'm in high school, I'm in middle school, I can't cry, I can't let the girls see me get scared. So you hide it, but it's inside, it's still freaking out. Like, oh, okay, how's it? You talk a little funny to the teacher and the friends, oh, how's it going? Kind of uptight and nervous. But then after a while, it kind of relaxes, just like in kindergarten. So after the first probably 5, 6, 7 days of class, it kind of mellows out. It's like, oh, okay, I'm safe here. This is a fun place, actually. They got toys, and then we sing songs, and, so eventually it's like, oh, okay, I'm in a safe place, and then the core you comes back out, and the part goes to the back. Now, this part, I want to just mention this, but this is not what this video is about. This part is not essentially, this is literally the definition of sin. Oh, by the way, the music will go down in about 7 seconds. So sin literally means to separate or to cut off from. That's all it means. Now, if you read the Bible from the right brain, you're going to understand that. But if you read it from the left brain, which is about rule, structure, and order, right or wrong, either or, it looks at everything as this is the rule, and you're wrong or you're right, and if you're wrong, you must be punished and you're going to hell. And that's not what sin meant. It means to separate from or to cut off from. Now, here's the deal. I'm going to add this a little bit. It really shouldn't be in this video, but since we went that far, we're going to. What happens with a lot of people, this part gets stuck in their forehead and they deal with everything with this part or some other parts. And essentially that's worshiping an idol. So you begin to function through this tiny little part that's like 5 years old, and you got another one that was 3 years old, another one. And when you operate from these little parts, the problem is they're little children. They have very little energy, and they have very little information. They have a very simplified strategy, which isn't very good because you developed it out of a 5-year-old or 4.5-year-old freaking out, getting shoved into class when his parents were taken off for the first time. But a lot of people will cling to these things, and that is a form of what we call idol worship. Now, I don't necessarily mean that in, oh, you're going to go to hell, but I mean it like it's going to cause your life to be hell because you're operating off of this part that isn't, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not really supporting you. It doesn't really do a good job for you, not because it was a bad being, but because it was a little kid in a messed up situation that was scared. And the strategy it developed was, I was freaking out. And it's like, okay, well, this is how I deal with new situations. Now, as an adult, the core you has gathered tremendous amounts of information from watching movie, television shows, reading books, listening to YouTube videos, just going out in daily life, watching how other people deal with getting into new situations or dealing with anything. That little part only has the information it has the day that you pushed it out. So it doesn't have new information and watching other people and reading books. Well, how do you deal with new situations? But the core you does, and the core you can walk into a new situation and feel extremely comfortable. So the number one thing we want to do with parts is we want to do parts integration. Okay, the school of training that I went through is we wholeheartedly believe it's all about integrating parts and bringing that droplet of energy, of water, back into the core, let's say into the bottle or into a glass of water, and dropping it back in. So now it becomes at one. That means to atone. Because one of the challenges with having a bunch of little parts running around is they tend to do what we call parts conflicts. For example, have you ever said, well, a part of me wants to do this, but a part of me wants to do that? And it pulls you literally in two completely different directions, and you get into a loop where you can't make up your mind. That's a parts conflict. So what we do is we find their higher purpose. It's a process. It's a step-by-step process. And then they will eventually integrate on their own. And then both of them will, after they became one, they will come back into the core you and become one with you. That is atonement at one. You ever felt when you're like really almost like battling with yourself and you literally get angry with yourself? I have a client right now who a part of him gets really mad at this other part, and it's something he's addicted to. It's not a real bad addiction, but it is an addiction. And he goes, God, just a part of me just gets really mad at that other part. And I'm like, yeah, that's a parts conflict. So now there's something we can also do. So generally we'll find their commonality, because here's the funny thing is they always have the exact same higher purpose, because they used to be one whole complete part together, and they always had the same purpose, but they got divided somewhere along the lines and split off. The only difference is they began to use two completely separate strategies. They generally have they generally have the same rules and values, but the strategy, the way they go about achieving the same higher purpose usually goes in two opposite directions. Now here's the really cool thing. Each part was a part of the other part, therefore each part has what the other part needs to achieve their greater purpose. And because they're separated, they generally can't achieve that purpose. And you'll go for years, even decades, just like, man, I don't know why I can't make money. I don't know why I can't succeed in life. You know, I'm smart, I'm talented. And you may genuinely very well be a very talented, smart, ambitious person. But the problem is, it's kind of like this. You know, like a lighthouse on the edge of the ocean by the rocks. You know, there's like the building, the actual lighthouse that goes up. But then there's the light inside. Well, one part will just be the light, and then the other part, the opposite part, will be the lighthouse. And then they begin to recognize, hey, wait a minute. That light's supposed to go in me, and I'm supposed to hold and protect that light so we can do our higher purpose of warning the ships to stay away. Now, here's the funny thing. I've actually had some people bring that well, in my left hand, it's like this really bright light, and it's really powerful. But the opposite part in my other hand, because parts will come out on your hand, it's a technique I take you through. It's this big like building. It's like what does it look like? I mean, I already know what it is. Well, I think it's like a lighthouse. And then they'll quickly look over their left hand, look back to the right. And this is all unconscious processing. So I will take them through this process to get both these parts to realize, hey, wait a minute. We have the exact same higher purpose. I mean, the exact same higher purpose. Now, let me tell you something. When I first learned this technique in class, I thought, oh, this is bullshit. I just was like, there's just no way. And they said, no, someone come on up. And someone went up, well, I've got this part of me, this and that. And people will even cry up on stage up in the chair up front, you know, depending on how intense their part is. And you're like, wow, I really feel sorry for this person. And here's the thing. When your parts are separate like this, it can cause you to be stuck in life. So even after I saw Tony Robbins do it. I've seen it done in NLP classes, different courses. I've seen it done dozens of times. And it wasn't until I did it with someone that they had the same exact higher purpose. And I was like, huh. Okay, this is interesting. This is someone who's never even heard of NLP, has never taken a psychology class in their life, and I was like, well, maybe it's a coincidence. I've done this for decades. It's the same thing with every single person I've ever done it with. It's really incredible process. The really cool thing is your hands will begin to tilt towards each other like the two parts. Even if one is like, by the way, the image is the light and then the building, and it's not always that. It could be a flower, it could be a lightning bolt, it could be a cloud, it could be anything. It could be anything. It's just symbolic. And the hands will literally start coming together. And you're like, well, what the hell is this? And it's like, when parts begin to realize they used to be part of each other, they will begin to gravitationally pull towards each other. The really cool thing is when you bring them together, eventually the hands will come together. You kind of cup it and it will integrate. And then it will change. Like in this case, it becomes, the light inside the lighthouse. With some people, it could be, I don't know, it's this really weird shape, and then it's this other thing over here, and when they come together, it's like, wow, it's completely different. It'll become like a spaceship, like a rocket, or like a beautiful meadow with the sun rising, something completely different than what the parts represented. But when they came together, they developed this bigger, larger part. And here's the really interesting thing. Their lives in that area begin to take off. like a rocket. Now let's apply this to relationships. Have you ever been in a relationship where you were in love, but then after 4, 5, 6, 7 years, things started going to hell, and it's like you would have these intense arguments? And what it really was is deep down inside, you just wanted to be loved and made to feel good in a certain way, the way they used to do it, or in the beginning, and you wanted it back, or who knows. But the purpose is that you were both really arguing. At least one of you is like, hey, I need to be loved. You want something good for both. So one of the possibilities that we can do, we can actually build a part that recognizes the purpose of why you're arguing. And the purpose is you're trying to feel good. You're trying to make the relationship better. And so what we can do, see, you can get into a loop of arguing and arguing and arguing and arguing, not just for like a day or an hour, but for days out of a week, months out of a year, years out of a decade. And this can go on forever when really you're just not recognizing, well, what am I arguing? What am I so upset about? Well, I want to feel good. I want them to hold me in that certain way. Or I want them to do this thing that used to make me really feel close to them. So what you can do is you can make what we can do is make a meta part that can recognize that now it's like you're making yourselves feel bad because you want to feel good. See, what you want is good. It's just the way you're going about it that's really bad. And that's the problem of having parts that were created. So when you were a little kid, like maybe you're 5 years old and you didn't know how to communicate, or maybe 3 years old, in a way to get, what you wanted. You wanted candy, or you wanted this, and this part came out, and that became the part to get you what you want. But its strategy was a 3-year-old strategy or 5-year-old strategy. And so the problem is the strategy isn't very effective. So we can build a part that recognizes when you're in this loop of arguing and fighting. And what it can do is it can say to you, to remind you, hey, you were doing this because you loved this guy. Do you remember the first time you fell in love with him? Do you recall what that was like? The way you were trying to get him to treat you well isn't working. Do you remember what you did then? What else could you do? Okay? So what we can do is we can build a part that interrupts this loop that you just spin round and round and you get nowhere. It can interrupt the pattern, and it can start shifting you in the direction you want to go in to create love, to create those good feelings. Again, this is another part that has a strategy that wants to get you what you want, but the way it goes about it, the strategy that and it usually was very unconscious, it developed a strategy unconsciously that just doesn't get you what you want. Not only can this frustrate you in relationships and even cause divorce, but it can ruin you financially, it can ruin you with your happiness, it can ruin you in every area of your life. And it can be extremely frustrating. I'm human too. Do you want to know why I got involved in NLP and Ericksonian hypnosis and energy healing? Because I was going through all this stuff too. In fact, I still am parts. Every now and then a new part will come up, like, okay, got to deal with this now. But here's the thing, you can deal with this stuff. You can heal these parts. You can integrate these parts. You can create a part of you that recognizes something and can, for example, we can create a part that recognizes a loop. So when you're frustrated and you're just like, well, you're getting pulled left and right, or you can't make up your mind and it's just exhausting. You can go years, decades in this loop. Say, you want to make money, but you don't know how. You want to make money, but a part of you feels like money is the root of all evil. It could be, there's all kinds of things that could be going on. We can go in there and we can shift those things, heal those things, and get them to have realizations like, that's not actually what the Bible said. And that part goes, oh. All of a sudden, it'll have a realignment and it will integrate with you. So when people come to me for relationship coaching, one of the things I will tell people, especially women, is like, look, he doesn't know how to communicate in the right brain language. He's not even aware of what the hell you're talking about. This literally is a hidden language to the male brain because most men are very left-brained. And in order to open her up to her heart, he has to open up to his right brain, which is when he opens up to his heart. This is a process that can be taught to men so he can learn how to communicate in the hidden right brain language. Not hidden from women, because a lot of them are like, what do you mean hidden? You're hiding something from women? No. It's something that's hidden from his brain. His brain hides from the right brain. So what I do in my course is I teach men how to open up, to literally wake up to themselves, to their internal self, to their right brain, and learn how to communicate in this more in-depth, more not only creative, but it's like, you know, lots of adjectives and adverbs, you know, it's more of a descriptive language. And it's very in-depth, so describing things in-depth in the indirect symbolic way, it gives her mentally stimulating experiences and emotionally fulfilling communication and experiences with him. It's meaningful to her. Now, if you go to some other relationship coach, they're not going to know what that is. They're like, well, what the hell is that? Never heard of that. Now, women are like, what do you mean? You know, we're very aware of it. Yeah, but you don't know that he's not. And you don't understand he's not wired that way. And you don't understand that. Here's what I'm trying to say. Like, men pour their hearts out, but they do it in the male way. I'll give you an example. The male language is the logical language. When he's in his left brain, it forces you to leave your right brain, which means now you're in the business mode, you're logical, and you're not feeling romantic. The right brain is the relationship brain. It's the emotional brain. It's the creative brain. It's the spiritual brain. It's the romantic brain. You know how women always say that sex is all in the brain? She's right. Because her mating system has a nerve that curves off to her right brain, specifically her right brain's communication center. So once men learn how to be this internal way, not only verbally, but also through body language, also through tuning in, through feeling the vibe and feeling her energy and noticing and having greater awareness, expanded awareness, all of a sudden, he can give her romantically meaningful and emotionally fulfilling experiences before connecting on a deeper, more meaningful sexual level. In fact, this makes making love meaningful. And a lot of women will tell you, you know, sex alone, keyword alone, is meaningless. And now growing up, you know, in high school and college, I even had a class where I had a great psychology teacher really break this down, but I still didn't understand what this mentally stimulating, emotionally fulfilling, like, because I was a left brain male, and I'm like, oh, okay, you know, but she did, you know, maybe I'll do another video with that, what she taught in this one class this one day. It took the whole hour, and man, it was a mind-blowing understanding. Men and women, we are coming from two different places, but we're meeting in the center, in the heart area. That's what we want. The problem is we begin in two different areas, and because of this, we really piss each other off, and we really, on accident, unconsciously hurt each other. And the real problem is he has no idea how to give her this meaningful, emotionally fulfilling experience until he takes my course. No one's teaching this. Nobody. Now, on top of that, there is a ton of communication skills. Man, when you learn these skills, not only are they simple, but they are effective. Now, let's tune this in a little bit more. And then you have someone like me who understands parts, because a lot of therapists have never even heard of parts, let alone, well, how do you do that? Like, how do you integrate parts? How do you, what's another word I'm looking for? How do you create a meta part that can snap you out of a loop that you've been going through for years and years and even decades? So we can go in there and fine-tune things. First of all, I have to be able to see it. So one of my things, I'm very open, very aware, very tuned in to what's coming at me. What's, you know, like, what's like, oh, she just said, well, a part of me this and a part of me that, and he this, and he goes, well, yeah, but a part of me, and also I'm like, oh, you guys have parts conflicts between the two of you. All we have to do is adjust that. The saddest thing is a lot of people end up fighting each other to tooth and nail towards the end of the relationship. And you know what you're fighting for? You're fighting for love. You're hurt. You feel like this person does. You know, here's the deal. I'm going to make it real quick. The male way of expressing his love is the male way that works for men. The problem is he doesn't know that you're wired differently, and you don't either. You're internal, he's external. So the more he tries to express his love, the more it frustrates you, angers you, and you're like, why won't he just love me? And men are like, what are you talking about? You know, one of the most hurtful things but truthful things that a woman will say is, why won't you love me? And you're like, I just bought you a house. I just bought you $150 worth of roses. I just took you out to a $400 meal at the expensive winery in Napa Valley. I just spent $4,000 on this, 3-day vacation in Napa Valley and blah, blah, blah. I bought you the most expensive wine. What do you mean? That's a man's way of deeply, 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 deeply expressing his love. The problem is, now here's the phrase right here. The way a man expresses his love is not the way a woman receives love. So we are literally wired differently. The reason why I emphasize receive is because he's at the other end of his brain trying to push, when what he needs to do is he needs to flip it and open up and communicate from that part of his brain, the right brain, and that's how she can receive your love. So like the penis, he's at the tip. He needs to be at the other open end, which is his far right brain. The way a man expresses love is what's called push energy. It's external. The male brain, the left brain, the logical brain for men and women is the external brain. She needs it done internally. The only way she can receive love is in the internal way. Now, by the way, the penis is the external symbol, phallic or body part, and it goes inside the woman's internal being. That's the open end of the V. It's also the same way with our language. There's the left male brain, which is the penetrating language, and then there's the open end, wide open, receiving right brain language, which is emotionally fulfilling. So when I say a man, the way a man expresses his love, the way a man loves a woman is not the way a woman receives love, I mean that physically and neurologically. And verbally, communication-wise. When men take this course and actually really see you right now, Matt, oh, I understand that. No, you don't. This is a whole this is a 5-day training, a 6-day training. This takes a while for your brain to be like, oh. But when you do finally get this, when you do finally understand this, your whole brain just goes, oh, and it's like a really cool aha moment, but it's also like, man, I've been doing it the wrong way. And then after a few more moments, the male brain goes, no wonder why she's always been pissed off at me. It's like, yeah, in her world, she hasn't received any love. And she's like, why won't he love me? You're trying to, you're just doing it in the wrong way. And it's not your fault. Now I'm going to give you a little bit more. So here's the deal. Women literally speak in the symbolic language. Now what does that mean? It means she says something out of her left brain A, but she doesn't mean A. She means something deeper, more meaningful, B, which is the right brain meaning. And that's what symbology is all about. The male brain, the left brain, it's the direct brain. A means A. That's it. Now to a woman, that means you don't care. Because you're not looking for the deeper meaning. And that's what women say, like, well, why don't you put any effort into it? Effort. And men are like, what are you talking about? I just worked 40 hours or 50 hours to make this money to take you out on this date or to buy you this gift. She's not talking about that. She's talking about right brain, emotional communication effort. Meaning communicate in this symbolic way. You say A, so she has to kind of pause and tune into your vibe, your tone, the way you're saying it with the energy, the emotions, and then figure out what does A mean. And she can do it by your body language, your tone, the tempo, the way you're saying it, and then that has a much more meaningful impact on her emotionally, and now she can feel your love. And if you don't do it in that way, which I didn't really teach it to you because it's a lot more in depth than that, but you do get an idea of it, is if you don't do it that way, in a million years, you could buy a $1 million home, a $2 million home, a bigger diamond ring. That's not love to a woman. That doesn't make a woman feel, and technically, here's the word, what does it mean? So when a woman says, I don't feel loved, She's talking about emotional fulfillment, and that's done through the hidden right brain internal language. Now you're probably going, well, just give me a tip, Mike. No, that will ruin it. Remember that V I just showed you? Tip bad, trust me, that tip, or another word for it is getting to the point, will destroy your relationship. In fact, those two words are left brain logical language. Get to the point or get to the tip. You know, like, well, just give me a tip, Mike. No, tips are left brain. That will disconnect her from a romantic right brain. It pulls her over into the left brain, and now she feels like she's at work. She has to think. She doesn't want to think. She wants to feel emotions, because that's romantic. So pause it right here and look at those words. You have specific, detailed, why, get to the point. That's death rattle in a relationship. Those are all about getting to the tip of the V. You want to go the other way, and in the course I'll teach you how. Alright everyone, God bless you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it opened you up to a little bit more knowledge about the difference between men and women. If you like this video, please click the like button, go ahead and click subscribe, click the bell, go ahead and make a comment, and if you want, you can go ahead and make a donation. There's a PayPal link right there in the description box. God bless you guys. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.